The first time Lena assisted in the morgue, she felt the usual cocktail of nerves and clinical detachment. She'd seen cadavers before. This was different. The body on the table had a small, curved scar just beneath the rib cage. Not a coincidence. An exact match. She had the same scar in the same place, same shape, same depth. Lena touched her side without thinking, her gloved hand brushing the fabric of her scrubs. Then she looked back down. There was another scar, left wrist, another on the ankle, identical to hers. The body wasn't a twin, wasn't family. The chart said Jane Doe, mid-30s. Lena was 24. Yet each line carved into the skin felt like it had been lifted straight off her own. Her supervisor didn't notice her freezing, but Lena couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't examining a stranger. She was examining a version of herself. The report was simple. Jane Doe had been found unresponsive in an alley behind a closed-down medical clinic. No ID, no phone, no witnesses. Local authorities assumed she was homeless, perhaps overdosed or collapsed from untreated illness. There were no outward signs of struggle, no apparent cause for alarm. The clinic had been shut for years. No working cameras, no staff, no records. The body was discovered by a city maintenance worker who thought it was a mannequin left from some prank. Toxicology was pending. Preliminary findings suggested dehydration, mild internal bruising, and surgical scars from past procedures. Nothing suggested foul play. The city logged it as an unidentified case, pending further investigation. Lena's classmates moved on. It was a tragic case, but one of many. Most didn't even look twice. But Lena couldn't stop looking. Lena started retracing her own medical history. She pulled out old photos, surgery records, childhood x-rays, the appendix scar. She remembered that. The fall that fractured her ankle, the cast, the metal screw they used for healing, confirmed. But something was off. She had no memory of any wrist surgery, yet her wrist bore a thin surgical line. She'd always assumed it was from falling off her bike. But now, seeing that exact scar on the Jane Doe, too exact. She began checking clinic records for surgeries she thought she'd had. At least 3 procedures in her childhood had no surviving documentation. Her parents chalked it up to poor rural hospital records. But Lena felt something gnawing at her logic, a missing puzzle piece too deliberate to be a mistake. She couldn't remember where she was on April 12th, 5 years ago. Neither could her mother. Lena pulled her old digital photo backups. She remembered that most phones auto-backup metadata with every picture. She searched for the date, April 12th. No photos. She checked the surrounding days. On April 10th, there were normal pictures, dog at the park, coffee with friends. On April 13th, school notes, a recipe. But April 12th? Nothing. Not one photo, not one text, not even a system log of phone usage. She checked her laptop calendar, her email, her GPS data. All blank that day, like the entire 24 hours had been erased. She assumed it was a software issue, until she found the archived GPS from her health tracker, stored in a backup cloud account she'd forgotten existed. That day, the coordinates placed her not at home, but pinged inside the same medical clinic where Jane Doe was found. Except, 5 years ago, that clinic had already been closed. Lena reached out to a forensic memory specialist. Maybe she had a mild dissociative episode. Maybe the scars were from an undocumented emergency surgery. Maybe she wandered off during a mental health crisis. The specialist noted Lena had been under stress during her pre-med years. Anxiety, disorientation, perfectly capable of distorting time and memory. Lena wanted to believe that. A psychiatrist suggested she might be projecting, that perhaps Jane Doe's scars were common. Appendectomies, fracture repairs, vein surgeries. Thousands of women have similar patterns. They even suggested Lena stop visiting the morgue for a few weeks, just to reset. So she did. She tried. Until she checked one more thing, Lena reviewed the cadaver photos again, privately. She zoomed in on the left forearm, where the scar formed a tight curve. She had always wondered about that scar on herself. She'd called it her comma. It looked surgical, but no one in her family remembered it happening. No record in any hospital. On the corpse, that comma scar wasn't quite healed. The tissue was newer, less than 2 months old. But Lena's scar was older, faded, years old. It wasn't that the corpse had her scars. It was that her own scars were copies of someone else's, new versions of older cuts. And when she checked the records, she found a match to a clinical study on neural mapping, an experiment that had been shut down for ethical violations, run by a university-affiliated lab inside the same building where the Jane Doe was found. The lab had been studying memory implants through surgical mapping. Lena's name was not on the list, but her scar patterns were. Lena never spoke of it again. She transferred schools and changed her track. No more morgue rotations. But every now and then, when she looks at her wrist in the mirror, she tilts it to catch the light and wonders if her body remembers something her mind was never allowed to keep.